Hi, I'm Alicia, and today we're going to learn how to archive a website. There are several flexible ways to archive a website. The great news is that they're all user-friendly and accessible. You merely have to pick the right solution for your needs and requirements. In this video, we'll take a look at how to archive a website. We'll also explore different archiving types you'll come across, round up a few of the most prominent site archiving tools, and discuss some tips for archiving your site. But before we get too far, I want to let you know that there will be links to more resources in the video's description, and remember to subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications for future helpful content. So let's get archiving. Web archiving doesn't just come in one flavor. There are a few different types you'll come across. Here's a breakdown of each. Client side. It involves the end user saving a version of the website in question. It's simple, scalable, and lets you archive a website with no fuss. Server side. The approach of the Wayback Machine and others is classed as server-side archiving. It uses crawlers and other technology to archive a website, but also requires a level of consent not found in client-side archiving. Transaction-based. While this is still based on server-side archiving, it's more complex and requires explicit consent from the site owner. Essentially, it archives the site transactions between the end user and server. For simple websites with static data, coupled with an organized archiving strategy, client-side archiving should fit the bill. However, most other sites will favor server-side archives. Transaction-based archiving isn't necessary for most websites. Finally, you'll also want to consider where and how your archives are stored. For example, a local archive isn't a poor choice, but you could see it disappear if you have a computer failure. On the flip side, you have less control over what's archived if you opt for a third-party solution. As you'd expect, the answer here is to use a multifaceted approach to archive a website. We suggest treating archives like backups. Keep 3 different copies in separate locations and synced somehow. You may want to make one of the archives live too, so that you can take advantage of any server-side functionality on your site. The result is a website with a robust backup and archive strategy that remains useful to others. There are a plethora of solutions available to archive a website. We'll run down a few of the more popular ones, along with our opinion on how it might suit you. First off, let's discuss the Wayback Machine. It was the first of its kind, so it's set the benchmark for other archiving tools. As such, it's likely going to be the first place head when looking to archive a website. It has many ways to create and upload archives, and even a dedicated API to hook into its functionality. It's worth noting it's a server-side archive solution too. That said, due to how it crawls and archives websites, the Wayback Machine might not be able to preserve all of your site's functionality. Nevertheless, it's considered the industry standard for web archivists, and it's entirely free to boot. Next up is Archive Today. It's similar in many ways to the Wayback Machine, even down to the site's almost retro design. Its data servers are based in Europe, but it approaches archiving differently than the Wayback Machine. For starters, Archive Today isn't based on crawlers running over the web. Instead, you submit your URLs and consent to inclusion in the archive. Besides, its feature list is more bare bones than other solutions. There isn't a robust deletion policy, for example, and the archiving process excludes certain media and file types. Still, it's free and suitable if you want a complimentary place to store archives. The site even has search functionality to find previously archived sites. Heritrix is a free open source tool born from a collaboration between the Internet Archive and Nordic Libraries. It's essentially a web crawler rather than a full-featured archiving tool. However, you can package all the crawled results together. While this hasn't been the case in the past, the Wayback Machine now uses Heritrix to crawl sites for inclusion on its own site. What's more, a large number of libraries and institutions use Heritrix to build archives. Despite its impressive features, installing Heritrix requires some technical know-how. There isn't a user-friendly interface to install it for you, so you'll need to know of Git, GitHub, and the command line. As with other similar solutions, Heritrix is entirely free to use, so it's suitable as a cost-effective self-archiving solution. If you're looking at Heritrix to archive a website but are put off by the technical knowledge required to simply install the software, there's a potential solution for you. The Web Archiving Integration Layer is a free and open-source cross-platform desktop app that gives you a functional graphical user interface to use along with an installer. The good news is that Heritrix is Whale's crawling engine. It means you get to leverage the power of Heritrix while not having to traverse GitHub and the command line. Besides, Whale uses the Open Wayback Engine to replay web archives. As such, you have a full-featured web archiving tool ready to go on your machine. Our penultimate archiving tool is billed as an automated solution that takes snapshots at set intervals. Stilio is a paid premium service that looks and feels different from other archiving solutions. The website looks slick and gives you a myriad of options to create an archive that meets your exact requirements. For example, you're able to add tags and custom titles to your URLs. What's more, you can choose to store archives to Dropbox, Google Drive, and other third-party services. However, Stilio has one huge drawback. It doesn't support back-end archiving. You're restricted to screenshots of your website rather than a full archive of data. For many applications, this isn't enough. Stilio could be more useful in some cases, such as serving as a brand management and tracking tool. For example, you can take screenshots of competitor sites or search engine results. It's also great for content verification. Our final solution is another automated tool. Page Freezer offers many of the same benefits as Stilio, but it also archives social media content, text messages, full sites, and enterprise-level collaboration platforms. On the surface, Page Freezer seems like a more robust solution than Stilio and would have greater value in various use cases. For example, where you're legally required to archive a site fully, Page Freezer fits the bill. It allows you to automate the number of snapshots and review them using a site archive browser and comparison tool. Overall, Page Freezer is a great enterprise-level solution for workplace archiving. Companies that use Yammer or Salesforce's Chatter will gravitate to this type of solution, as will workplace users. Now, we're going to suggest 5 different ways to archive a website. We've ordered the solutions based on their relative difficulty. First off, let's discuss the most straightforward solution. It's great if you need to archive a single page, and even better, the functionality is already in practically every browser. To start, open your favorite browser and head to the website you'd like to archive. Once the page has loaded, navigate to your browser's File menu and find the Save Page As option. Next, click the option to save the page, at which point the browser will show you a dialog box. Here, choose a name for your page. Also, make sure that you're saving the entire page rather than just the HTML. It will preserve the site with the most functionality possible. We think MyKinsta is an essential tool for creating and deploying WordPress websites. However, it has another string in its bow. It helps you archive your Kinsta-hosted websites too. We've covered the entire process of pulling an external MyKinsta backup into MyKinsta in one of our knowledge base articles, which you'll find the link to in the resources below. To summarize, create and download a backup in MyKinsta. Create a new site with MyKinsta. Import your content and database. Carry out a search and replace on your database to change the URL name from your live site to your new local archive. At this point, you can open your site in MyKinsta and use it as though it were live. No tutorial would be complete without showing you how the Wayback Machine works. Fortunately, the process is simple. That said, note that this method only lets you archive individual pages, though the subscription Archive It service does let you archive full sites. For this approach, head to the Wayback Machine homepage and check out the Save Page Now form. To archive a page, simply add the URL you wish to save to this form, then click Save Page. Depending on how large or complex the page is, you may need to wait a few minutes while the crawler and engine do their thing. It could be that the page looks as though it's crashed. We were faced with a white screen of death for a while in our testing. However, once the page has been archived, Wayback Machine will redirect you to the new dedicated page. Note that you can also use a bookmarklet and browser extension to archive a website too. In fact, most of the current browsers have these options out of the box, including Google Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. Your first step with this approach is to download Whale itself and install it. Fortunately, there's a dedicated installer for the tool. The install process is a breeze. Regardless of your operating system, you can carry out the following. Navigate to the Whale website and download the appropriate installer for your operating system. Either unzip the file for the Windows version or mount the DMG image for macOS. On the resultant dialog screen for macOS, drag the app icon to your applications folder. For Windows users, simply drag the unzipped folder to your root C drive. Launch either whale.app or whale.exe, depending on your operating system. Once Whale is open, you'll see its minimal interface. You're now presented with 3 options to choose from: View and Archive, Check its status, or Archive a website. The buttons are slightly confusing as your natural inclination may be to read from left to right. However, on the first launch, you'll have nothing in your archives. Instead, enter the URL for the site you want to archive and click Archive Now. You'll see Whale begin to crawl the website. You can check on the status of your crawl in the Advanced Heritrix tab. When it's done, it'll show you a success message. At this point, you can click the View Archive button on the Basic tab. This will open your archived site in a browser ready for you to view. For our final method to archive a website, you'll need a few things before you start. Command line access to your computer. A suitable command line tool such as Windows Command Prompt or Terminal on macOS and Linux. wget installed on your computer. You'll likely have the first 2 already. On macOS, you can install wget through Homebrew on the brew install wget command. Note that you also need to install Homebrew, but it only takes seconds. On Linux, wget is pre-installed on most of the major distros. If you're a Windows user, you may have a tougher time installing wget on your computer. While there are tutorials available across the web, their guidance doesn't appear consistent between machines. Instead, we recommend you head to the official wget website and check out some of the available Windows binaries, as these are more likely to work for you. Regardless, once you've installed wget, using it is straightforward. First, navigate to a directory in a new terminal window. Here, we're creating the directory too, but this step is optional. Note, the wget will pull all downloads into whatever the working directory is. In this case, we've specified a folder for our files. Next, you'll want to crawl a site and pull the files. Every action is invoked using the wget command, and you'll want to use the following format. Hitting the Enter key will begin the download of kinsta.com to an index.html file and create a work file named like this. Wget is powerful, and there are many commands and options you can use. For example, you can use the mirror command to create a work file containing your site's complete mirror. You can also use the no work compression command to write uncompressed files, though this is obviously going to take up more space per download. Using the built-in compressor is the optimal approach. Kinsta's WordPress hosting can speed up your website by up to 200%, and you'll get 24/7 support from our expert WordPress engineers. Let us show you the Kinsta difference. Try a free demo of our MyKinsta dashboard at demo.kinsta.com. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials, explainers, and helpful content like this.